Today, good evening. You're welcome to another episode with Finance with Dr. Ish, where I always share financial tips on how best to save money, earn money, start your business, and become financially independent and well capable to take care of yourself. Right. So today I'm talking about why saving emergency funds from your income or your salary is non-negotiable. Yes, remember for the past few days that I've been running live sessions, I've been talking so much about salary, income, the five type of bank accounts you should have, why you should have a very healthy saving culture, why you should have financial discipline, and why you should be able to know how to segment your income. Now, I'm going to ask you one very critical question that we're going to address on today's topic. So, if for some reason, God forbid, for some reason you're unable to earn salary or income for say 3 months, how would you feel? For how long do you think you can survive? Let's imagine you have no source of income for 3 months. Would you survive for a week? Would you survive for a month? Or would you just, lose all hope? And this is the problem many people face in their finances. Quite a number of people, most especially people I've worked with for about 2 decades, once they get out of job, like for instance, during the recession era, during COVID, when people stopped earning monies, once they stop earning, they now find out that they are unable to take care of themselves. They find out that they're unable to take care of themselves, they're unable to fend for themselves because they cannot take care of their basic needs. I mean, the problem usually starts from being able to take care or provide for your basic needs. Let's not even talk about family, immediate family or extended family that you have to take care of. Basic needs being able to feed yourself, being able to transport yourself, being able to buy yourself the necessary things, take care of your bills, your electricity bills, your transportation bills, those things you do regularly every month. So now, this is not about vibes. This is not about faith. This is not about thinking that, I mean, God forbid, it can happen to me. It can happen to anyone. Unexpected things can happen. Loss can come at any point in time. Now, we're not praying for things to go bad, but the basic point of why I'm telling you this is if you find yourself in a situation where you lose your job. I mean, it can happen to anyone. 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. How long do you think you can possibly survive? Some people could say I'd survive without a job for the next 6 months. And the longer you can survive without being on an income, the more it shows how strong your saving culture is. Now, another thing you need to understand is that when you need to define for yourself what is a financial emergency. To some people, a financial emergency is not being able to feed. To some people, a financial emergency is not being able to pay their bills, like take care of their family, pay the electricity bill, to be able to pay their school fees. There's so many ways people define not being able to take care of themselves. But when I hear people tell me the concept of an emergency fund is for only rich people, that's a lie. You can't say that you should have an emergency fund only because you are rich or because you are poor. Emergency fund works for both rich people. So, one of the best ways of making sure that you don't fall into any financial trap or any financial trouble while you are earning is to make sure that you have emergency funds to give you that cushion effect. So, when I mean cushion effect, that means if there's any crisis or anything that goes wrong during your career, maybe you change jobs, or maybe there's a recession, or maybe there's a downsizing, or maybe, sorry, my network went off for a minute. So maybe the people you work for are not paying your salaries at the right time, are not giving you access to, you're not having the right kind of access to funds at the right time, the most advisable thing, very important for you, is to ensure that you have an emergency funds. Now, the emergency funds is what to safeguard you against unexpected surprises, job loss, whatever. And it's a reality. Let's be honest about it. Anybody can lose their job at any time. Anything can go wrong at any time. So, first thing first is, what is an emergency fund? Let's define it practically, right? An emergency fund is money you set aside strictly for unexpected situations. I mean, it goes without saying emergency. How do you define emergency? So, setting an emergency fund is strictly for unexpected situations. That's why it's called an emergency fund. So, it makes financial sense for you to put money aside just in case anything is going wrong. It could be loss of job, it could anything can happen. Maybe you want to buy a house, or you want to take care of some things that come unexpectedly, or you have a huge amount of debt to take care of. Anything can happen, and that's the reason why it's important to have an emergency fund. So it is strictly for unexpected situations, not for your day-to-day expenses, right? It's not for your rent, it's not for your business, it's not for flexing, it's not for partying, it's not to get yourself a new car, it's not to marry a new wife, it's not to buy yourself that Gucci bag or all those other things that you've been dying to get for yourself for a long time. No. An emergency fund is supposed to help you take care of yourself if you experience a job loss, if you experience a medical emergency, or let's say you have an urgent car repair, or a family emergency, or a sudden school fee demand. I mean, it may be that and more. But because it's called an emergency fund, it's something you need to prepare for inevitable expenses that can come without, any notice. So if it is predictable, it is not an emergency fund. So emergency funds are practically unpredictable situations that happen without you planning. That's why they're called emergency fund. So this is the basic reason why having an emergency fund is very, very important. I have many people that say, "Oh, I have great difficulty saving. When I collect my salaries, when I get paid, I find it difficult to save." And a lot of times, why people find it difficult to save is because of their lifestyle. Sometimes they have a very high level of lifestyle. They're looking for how to impress other people. You know how social media is. People want to drive the best cars, wear the best clothes, they want to look good. So if you have that kind of lifestyle, it may be difficult for you to have an emergency fund. So it makes good financial sense and good financial practice to always make sure when you get paid, immediately you get paid your salary, immediately you get paid for your business, your job, or your side hustle. Please don't leave all your funds in one account. No, don't leave everything you earn in one account. Always make sure that you share your monies into different type of accounts. Remember the other live session where I said you share into 5 different type of accounts. Now, the first major account is the one where you earn your salary. And the reason why I keep repeating this consistently is because, when you're doing a YouTube live, different people hop in and hop out, and they can miss very crucial and important information, right? So, repeating what I've said before basically is, when you earn your salary or you have your income, first thing first is to move your income into your First, you move part of your income into your daily expenses account, the account that you use in taking care of your transportation, your bills, your electrical bills, your feeding, those little things that you take care of every month. Then you have another account we call the emergency fund account. And that's what we're talking about today primarily. Emergency fund account is the account that helps you to take care of unexpected job losses, unexpected medical emergency or bills, maybe unexpected car repair, family emergency, or school fees demand. Now, emergency funds are not predictable, right? The things you use the emergency funds for are not things that you can predict. They come as an emergency. So if your friend is having a wedding in the next 2 weeks, that is not an emergency. If you suddenly feel like buying yourself a pair of Gucci shoes or Prada bags, that is not an emergency. If you feel like getting married in 2 months, that is not an emergency. Or if your a friend comes to ask you for money to get themselves a new car, no, that is not an emergency. The emergency basically is for you and, well, most likely, of course, as is expected, your family. So basically, if it is predictable, it is not an emergency. Now, why did I say that an emergency fund is non-negotiable? Because one, it protects your dignity. So it avoids you from having to go around borrowing money from friends. If you don't have an emergency fund and you end up having an unpredictable event happen to you, the very first thing you're going to need to do is to either get a loan from the bank or to borrow money from your friends or borrow money from your family. So unless you have so many rich friends who are ready to borrow you money anytime, well, maybe probably you don't need an emergency fund. But if you're someone who wants to maintain their dignity and you're tired of always having to rely on people to help you financially, then it makes a lot of financial sense. Anytime you get paid from your salary or your job or your business, any kind of income, you should have an emergency fund. It is non-negotiable, and it helps you to not only not borrow from friends, you don't have to beg people to help you, and you also don't have to sell your investments. Let's say you already have a car, you already have a house, and you have other things, that are pretty expensive. So when you have an emergency fund, you don't have to sell your car to pay your bills. You don't have to sell your house to pay your bills. You don't have to sell your any part of your property to pay anything. Once you have an investment in emergency funds, you are almost as good as safe. Maybe not 100%, but at least you are safe for some time, right? So it also, helps you to not get into bad relationships. And when I say bad relationships, you know what they call loan sharks, right? I mean, not the banks. You know, when you want to loan money, there are people that give you really high interest rates. So if you have a good emergency fund, you are not going to have to beg or borrow from anyone. Now, I said one of the reasons why it is good is because it saves your dignity. Now, the second reason why it is non negotiable to have an emergency fund account is because it protects your investments. So, imagine all of a sudden, um, I'm sorry, but I mean, this is the first example that comes to mind. You lose your job. I mean, anybody can lose their job at any time, right? So if you happen to lose your job, or I mean, you remember how COVID was like, many people were out of job, right? Now, if you don't have an emergency fund and something unpredictable happens, part of what you will also probably do, if you do have an investment, is you will withdraw your long-term investments. And long-term investments take time and time and time to grow. So you can imagine if you've had a house you saved 10 years for, or you have some sort of investment that you inherited from your family, and then you have to quickly sell it because you do not have any backup funds to take care of yourself. If you also have things like a fixed deposit with a bank, or you have assets, trust me, when you are desperate to get money, the first thing that you're going to think of is, what can I sell? Am I going to sell my car? Am I going to sell my house? Am I going to sell my property? Am I going to sell my shoes? Am I going to sell my clothes? So there's so many things that you're going to be thinking about if you do not have an emergency fund. But if anything comes up unexpectedly, you already have a fallback plan to take care of your finance. Now, that's the second reason. Remember, I said the first reason why it's non negotiable is because of your dignity, and the second is because it safeguards your investment, right? So, the third reason why it's very important for you to have a non negotiable emergency fund is because it protects your mental health. Guys, I mean, anytime you're broke, how do you feel? Do you feel happy when you're broke? Absolutely not. When you're broke, you lose your sleep, you'll be unable to make good decisions, you'll probably be having problems in your relationships, and then your self esteem will be so, so low. Now, financial peace is not about how much you make, it is about how prepared you are if unpredictable things happen. And that is the very crucial thing why being financially smart, financially savvy is important. You don't need to earn millions of dollars or thousands of dollars to be able to save yourself financially. And that's why I always advise people savings, investments, and emergency funds are so crucial. You can start small, $5 today, $10 today, $20 tomorrow. I mean, it depends on how you earn. You don't have to save $1 million or $1,000 to be financially safe, to be able to stand for yourself, right? So, if you don't have an emergency fund, trust me, you will lose sleep. Once any crisis comes, you're going to be scared because you won't be sleeping well anymore. You're just going to be making loads and loads of bad decisions. I mean, just imagine, think back to any time you've been broke or you've not had any money. How well were you making decisions and how happy were you? I mean, trust me, if you're broke, you'll be angry all the time. You'll be angry with your husband, you'll be angry with your wife, you'll be angry with your brothers, you'll be angry with your sisters because money empowers people. Finance empowers people. Finance makes people strong. I mean, when you have money, you're always happy. Okay, maybe not happy all the time, but at least some of the time you're always happy. So that is a very crucial reason. So I hear people say, "Oh, if I earn more money, I will be able to save more." While that is somehow true, it is not 100% true because I've seen people that earn a lot of money, but they don't know how to save money, and that's where financial discipline comes in. You need to be extremely financial disciplined, but you don't need to start so much. You just need to start little. Consistency, yes, consistency is the name of the game. If you're consistent, you'll be fine, right? So, how much should you have to be able to have a very good emergency fund? How much should you have? So, it depends on how much you earn every month. So, I'm not going to tell you if you have $5,000 then you have a good emergency fund. If you have $200, you have a good emergency fund. No, I'm not going to tell you that. But I'll tell you that whatever it is you're earning now, you should focus on having a minimum of 3 months of your salary, a minimum of 3 months of your monthly income. That is what you should have in your emergency funds. So let's say you earn $100 every month. It's just an example. So if you earn $100 every month, your emergency funds should be at least $300, a minimum of 300 to $600. That should be your emergency funds. Now, is it going to be enough for your entire life? No, but it is supposed to be able to take care of you for the next 3 to 6 months in case there's an emergency. So let me take that again. How much should you have in your emergency funds? This is just basic math. If you are earning, say, $1,000 every month, right? You should have a minimum of 3 months of your salary, 3 months of your income in your emergency fund. So 3 to 6 months. I prefer 6 months, but the worst case scenario is 3 months. So let's say you're tired of your job, you're fed up of your boss is annoying you, is irritating you, it's too toxic, there's too much stress on your job, and you want to resign. Good. I'm not saying don't leave the job or any, I mean, anything can happen. You can leave the job or they can terminate your job or whatever. But before you leave the job, please ensure you have an emergency fund. And in your emergency funds, you should have 3 months to 6 months of your paycheck before you leave, right? But if your income is unstable, let's say you don't earn money every month, then you should, apart from being able to track your expense, you should need to know how much you spend every day, how much you spend every week, and how much you spend every month. Always track your expense so that you can create a budget on your average expense every month. So if you're not earning stable income every month, the best way to have an emergency fund is to know an average of how much you spend every month. Once you have that average you spend every month, the next thing you need to do is to now calculate, multiply it by 3 or multiply it by 6 and save. That, my dears, is your emergency fund. So your essentials. Now, essentials is your food, your transportation, your electrical bills, maybe your phone bills. If you have a family, what are the things you do for them every month? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the hairstyle. So sorry. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for the hairstyle. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, what should you know when starting a business? All right. What should you know when starting a business? First of all, before starting a business, you should have enough capital to sustain the business for 6 months. So, I always say start small because every business has its advantage and disadvantage. What are the risks of this business you want to start? How long can I keep this business alive? And if this business goes south, how much am I going to lose? So always start the business small. Say, for instance, you want to start selling clothes, right? Say you want to open a shop, a fashion designer, you're a fashion designer and want to sell clothes. Now, most people would rush to quickly start paying for a shop or a stall or in the market, get themselves a location, pay electrical bills and all that. That's not the best way to start. I always tell my clients, start your business from home, start small, understand the risk involved, right? And then make sure that you have enough capital to sustain you for the next 6 months. So if you're not taking loan from a bank, which I do not advise, if you already have an income, like a salary that you are earning, then start saving from your salary for the business to last you for like a year, just in case there's any hiccup or unexpected needs that comes for the business, right? So when starting a business also, ask yourself, do I have a passion for this business? Is this really what I want to do for myself? Because when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. If you don't have passion for that business, if you're starting the business because people say there's money in that business and you don't see that money in the business on time, you are going to give up on that business. I don't know if it makes any sense. Hello, lovely. I hope what I'm saying is making sense. Starting a business, make sure it is something you have a passion for, make sure it is something you have some level of experience, and make sure you have mentors, people that have started that business before you, so that if there's a problem with the business, they can advise you on what to do. I hope what I said was able to answer the question. So, finally, to round up, you don't need to earn billions of naira or billions of dollars or billions of pounds or billions of whatever currency to be able to start your own emergency fund. You don't need billions to also start your own business. And with this question, I think I will have a live session on how to start your own business, low scale. Maybe I'll have that live tomorrow. So if there's any other thing you'd like me to talk about, please feel free to drop in the comment section or any of my videos. So to summarize, an emergency fund is not just about how responsible you are. It's not about the level of your dignity, but an emergency fund is very important. So it saves you from embarrassment. It saves you from borrowing money. It saves you from begging. It saves your dignity. It saves you from doing what you shouldn't do. It saves you from bad relationships. And most especially, it saves you from unexpected and unplanned expenses, like if you lose your job or medical emergency or your family needs help, urgent, something urgent. And that's why it's called an emergency fund. So to cap it all, remember, guys, what I always say. When you get your salary, when you get your income, please make sure you keep your money in these five accounts. Your income account, where your salary is coming from, your savings account that takes care of your day-to-day expenses and needs, your emergency funds, and your investment funds. I think I also have another session on the type of safe investments to have, and your long-term goals funds. These five type of bank accounts, please don't ever leave your salary in a bank account just doing nothing. If you have discipline saving money, all you need to do is to download financial apps that can help you save your money. Once you get paid, fixing the dates, fixing the amount, fixing the time, it automatically debits your income account and then moves the money to where you cannot easily touch, especially for those that don't have discipline. Move it to a separate place and then you can do what you need to do at the. So basically, guys, you know how I say it, you know how I do it. It is always good to be financially smart, financially savvy, and of course, to achieve anything for yourself financially. If it's your emergency funds, if it's your savings, if it's your investments, if it is any business you want to start, you must have financial discipline. I hope you had an amazing time. Thank you so much for staying with me. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys live tomorrow again for another financial session. Thank you, and goodbye. Mwah.